and restart. And so now this is on video. And if you're worried about asking questions, for the most part it catches only my voice, so you can still ask questions. And if you're worried that, this is, here, I'm going to pause it for a second. Here we go. Measurement is our first unit, and there are two main types of measurement that we see in Canada. We have imperial units, which they use mainly in the United States, but we still have a lot of them used in Canada. For example, most Canadians, when you ask how tall they are, they'll say, I'm 5'8" or 6'2", something like that. They're still using imperial units. But some Canadians, especially if they have recently come to Canada from Europe or from other countries, they will say their height in centimeters, or meters and centimeters. And our official system in Canada is the metric system. So when you're driving on the highway, right, all of our signs are in kilometers. They're not in miles. All of our speeds are in kilometers per hour, not in miles per hour. And yet, we still have, on all our vehicles, if you look at a speedometer, it has kilometers per hour and miles per hour on the dial. And a lot of things are still based on the mile system, especially in the prairie provinces. When you go out to farms, all of the gravel roads are exactly 1 mile apart. And a section of land, which is in a 1 mile by 1 mile, is still based on acres instead of hectares. So we still use a lot of the imperial units because they make sense based on how things are made. Like, because the roads are 1 mile apart, you'll often hear farmers say, go up 5 miles. They won't say, go up 5 kilometers, or like 5 miles would be around 8 kilometers. Because it's easy to count. You just have to count how many roads you hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you would know when you get to that spot. So when we look at the ground here, right, all of these tiles that are on the floor are 1 foot by 1 foot. We wouldn't know how many centimeters that is, but I can tell you right now that that's 12 inches by 12 inches. Because a lot of our building materials, since we share things with the United States, still have those imperial units. So it's important to be able to work with both of them. And the first part of this unit is working with systems within a system, and then working with how do we convert between two systems. A very practical unit to start with. So we'll start off with our metric system. Our metric system has base units for length and volume, and my spell check was on French when I put this in, and I forgot to change it, so those are not spelt wrong. But if you were spelling something in French, they would be spelt wrong. Okay? So if we're talking about length, in the metric system, the base unit is the meter. Everything is based on the meter. If you're talking about volume, it's either the cubic meter or the liter. Now, a cubic meter and a liter are not the same, but they are base units depending on whether you're using dimensions or liters is how much space water takes up. Okay? So they are a different way of measuring volume. Anybody planning on traveling after they're done high school, maybe go backpacking in Europe? When you buy a big backpack, they tell you how big it is in liters. This is an 80-liter backpack, a 95-liter backpack. Not that you would want to fill it full of water, but you could. Again, well, the pen would probably leak. And mass, the base unit, is grams. And so then we have a symbol for each of these, meters, liters, grams. And from that, we add prefixes or letters in front to indicate different units, right? Probably one that you're familiar with is kilometer, km. You put the K in front, and that stands for 1,000 times the base unit of the meter. And that's why there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. But you could use these prefixes in front of anything. Some of them we don't use very much. Have you ever said, I'm so thirsty I could just drink a kiloliter of water? No, probably. Have you used kiloliters very often? No, they exist. You just have to put the K in front of the L and you'd have a kiloliter. But it sounds kind of funny because we don't use it very often. And even within these, right, there's some that you are probably more familiar with and some that we hardly ever use. Like for measurement with meters, you've heard of a centimeter. It's on your ruler. You've heard of a millimeter. It's on your ruler. How often have you used a decimeter? Never, right? So some of these don't come up, but we have a prefix so that it goes by tens each time, with the exception from here to here, it goes up by 1,000, and same thing from here to here, it's by 1,000 as well. So we go up by tens when we're close to the base unit, and then when we're getting really far away from the base unit, then we go up by 1,000. Whew. Right? What would be a megameter away from here? That's 1,000,000 meters or 1,000 kilometers away, right? What city? What city is 1,000 kilometers away from Winnipeg? No. Probably. Not Calgary isn't quite is farther than that. I think they're 1,300. But you could say, oh, it's just a megameter to get there. But again, nobody would understand that because there's certain things that we use and certain things that we don't. But it would be kind of, I would have fun playing around with this, right? Start telling your parents your height in decimeters. Get really excited. Oh, I just grew to, I'm now 60, well, that's 60 decimeters high, but it even takes hard time to think about it. So try and figure out how many decimeters high are you? And then explain that. It's not hard, but it takes a little bit of thinking. Just divide by 10. So if you know how tall you are in centimeters, so if you know that you're 177 centimeters tall, then you would be 17.7 decimeters tall. The whole point of the metric system is that it is easy to convert from one thing to another. And when you go to convert these things, so if we turn to the next page and we're actually converting them, well, one of the things you have to know is what's the relationship between the two things that you're converting. So here I have 100 kilometers is how many meters. So the first thing I need to know is what's the relationship between kilometers and meters. That there are 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer. And then when you're converting within the system, you're either multiplying or dividing, depending on which direction you're going. So in this case, we're going from something that is bigger, kilometers, to something that is smaller. And there's the end of class. So we will continue from this tomorrow or Monday. Have a great weekend.